Hey everybody, I'm Chris.
And I'm Roman.
And today we're going to be reviewing John Wick Chapter 4.
In this movie, we are getting a real culmination of everything we've seen from John Wick so far, and he is finally trying to get all the way out of the mess he created once and for all. Is it going to work? I don't know. We'll find out. Although you probably have already found out because this is a spoiler review. And in this chapter of the movie, there are some things that you wouldn't want spoiled for you. So if you haven't seen it, come back when you have. We would love to have you. But we're going to be getting into some serious spoiler territory.
Yeah.
So Chris.
So Roman.
John Wick Chapter 4. What are some of your initial thoughts?
Dude, this movie is the quintessential action movie. I felt like it was the perfect combination of all three movies, built up so nicely. I absolutely loved it. The action scenes are spectacular. Donnie Yen's character was so cool and just so unique. And honestly, I really thought it was like a perfect action movie. What are your thoughts, initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who is, a lifelong fan of the action genre,
yeah,
this is exactly what, this is exactly a movie that was made for people like us, who will be entertained by pure action scenes, that kind of thing. So I obviously loved it. But I will say, like, if you are not a giant action movie like stan, this is like a straight 0 out of 10 for you. Because the plot is very minimal. And this movie lives and dies on the quality of its action scenes.
Oh yeah.
The quality we'll get to, fantastic. But if that's not something you're into, simply don't watch this.
Yeah, 100%. It's literally so action driven, but I think that's what makes it so good. I literally saw a thing that said like Keanu Reeves like cut lines from John Wick, from this character, because he just wanted to be more action and less talking. And it's like, I loved it, honestly.
Yeah, I think it was great to see a movie like that, just really leaning into that element. And I don't think the John Wick franchise was always like that. My personal favorite movie in the franchise is still the first one. I think the first one is very different from the next three, is my personal opinion. But I love all of them, and this is no different. The only difference I think is the first one was kind of something where you don't have to be an action fan. My grandmom actually watched the first John Wick movie and loved it. She usually only watches Jane Austen movies. So, but there was enough there with the John Wick's like emotional drive as a character. But now we're really into this mode where it's about the fights.
Yeah, like John Wick is fully back. He is fully ready to get out. Say screw the high table, and I think it's what makes it so enjoyable, honestly, is that, like, I felt like the first movie and the second movie was kind of him, like, being like, oh, am I back? Am I doing this? His dog got killed, and then, he, like, kind of came back in the second one. He was, like, kind of debating, but this one's really him leaning into it, like, really embracing that role, but also trying to find a way out, and I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, at this point, there's no moral dilemma with John Wick. There's nothing like that. That he is very much the same person at the beginning that he is at the end. And not that any of the movies have like a ton of character growth with John Wick, but this this movie, we've said it a million times, is about the action scenes, and we gotta get into what makes some of those so great. Which was your personal favorite?
Oh, dude, it's a tough one. I think I loved the one in Paris. On the stairs, like, it was just so, I mean, it's like so good that it doesn't even like seem real. Like, I just all the coordination and all the work that went into that to actually like film that singular scene, and just all the different moves and the action, and then like he got like thrown down the stairs and to start back up again. Like, I just love like how like the stairs can act as like that visual, like like the kind of like the running clock where he needs to be up at the top, and it was just perfect. What about you?
I mean, I love that scene as well, and you bring up a great point. I mean, the people making this movie had just such a free license to be creative, and we've seen some creative decisions in action movies that really remind me of like the classic Jackie Chan era of like you take a set and you just milk it for every ounce of like creativity. Everything you see on a set in these fight scenes is going to be used, and that's just awesome. I think my favorite fight scene has got to be the one where we get that overhead shot as he goes up all the floors of the building, and he's got the flame spitting gun.
That was awesome.
It's a continuous shot for like 3 minutes.
Oh, I love continuous shots.
It looks so good. I mean, a lot of people commented it looks like a video game, and that's a compliment because it's one of those how did they do it kind of shots, but it's just a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, speaking towards that, kind of how they did it, I loved that. I believe it was also in Paris. When they're like in I can't remember what the monument's called in Paris, but like with all the cars and like that circle, like I don't know how they just like coordinated all that, like all those cars going through, like them weaving through. Like I was so curious, like is it CGI? Is it real? Like is it a combination? Like just how they, it's so masterfully done that it's like it just all looks so seamless, and that's why it's just like. I just thought it was so amazing, yeah.
No, it absolutely was amazing. But the two, so there's really 3 major action scenes in this movie. It kind of like felt like a movie that could have been divided up into like 3 episodes, sort of.
Yeah.
Like it was like episode 1 was Japan, episode 2 was Germany, right?
Yeah.
And then episode 3 was France. And each one kind of has like a little bit of its own arc. Now, a lot of people are going to say this movie felt too long, and I definitely was in a place at times where it was like, you know, you're kind of zoning out. But then, because I love action, got pulled back in when things picked up a bit. But all 3 of those, I mean, all 3 of those chapters, I guess we have in this movie, acts, would be the more correct word, are great. So what did you think about we'll go backwards, the Germany arc?
Okay, I think the Germany, I guess, arc, if you will, was my least favorite, maybe. It just felt like, it was almost like a side quest, kind of, if you will, in the movie, like, because he needed, like, like a house or, like, a country or something like that to, like, represent him to actually, like, challenge one of the main guys in the high table. And the fight was, like, okay. It was just, like, that one, like, really, really big dude that he fought. And it's, like, it was pretty cool seeing him get, like, taken down in the club and everything like that. Like, I was, like, it was interesting, but I guess in terms of just like everything else, like it's such a good action scene. Like I don't want to like, you know, knock it down, but in terms of everything else, it just like felt a little, not underwhelming, but like not like as crazy, if you will.
I would agree. I think it was my least favorite of the 3.
Yeah.
But still, the highlights were highlights.
Yeah.
Once we got, I think the end of John Wick's fight with, I'm forgetting the character's name, but the big guy.
Yeah.
Is one of the real action highlights in the movie. I mean, the way that fight ends is just awesome, and it's gritty, and you know, there's so many of these characters are just so, you know, for lack of a better word, colorful. I know they are literally like colorful in what they're wearing, but like just unique, interesting, almost like this one guy. He almost feels like a cartoon villain. But it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You love like every second of how crazy it all is, and I love that this franchise has moved into that. But I think I appreciate the Osaka fight a bit more than the Germany one.
Yeah.
There's some parts of that sequence that are just awesome, and the choreography is just incredible.
Oh yeah, it was so beautifully crafted. There was so many people in that scene because you know they just like send in all their troops, and yeah, I just loved how like in the museum like throwing each other through the glass, and then. Like you think, and that scene was so long, like you think like John Wick, you know, was like done, he's out, and then like another person comes out of nowhere and he fights them off, and then like it just like has that back and forth, and it's just like, yeah, I think it was really, really, really well done.
Yeah, I think that was awesome. I mean, one thing that I think people might have a criticism of with this particular scene is they introduce this concept, I think it was, I don't remember if it was introduced in 2 or 3, but of like basically fabric, like light fabric.
Oh yeah.
That's bulletproof, which is always like a, you know, impossible, maybe futuristic technology.
Yeah.
But they introduced that so that everything isn't just you have a pistol, the fight's over. And they use that in this fight so that we get to see a more full range of weapons used. I think that's awesome.
Me too.
But some people might be like, really, like the guns are useless now because people are wearing suits and ties. But if you can turn that off in your head, it makes room for some amazing like handheld weapon martial arts scenes. And the fact that that was set in Japan was even better because I mean, Japan, like Japanese cinema has a really, really deep history of amazing sword fighting movies and things like that. So, so we got a lot of homages to Japanese film history, and I think it just makes this scene just fantastic. Like they're really pulling from a lot of good traditions.
Yeah, I agree. I can see how people can maybe think it's a little gimmicky or like not, you know, too not original, but like, oh okay, like not realistic. But I personally really liked it because yeah, like you mentioned, I think it kind of allowed the stunt people, just the film itself and the action to be a little bit more creative. You can't just like shoot someone because it's bulletproof. You got to get more creative with your kill. Use that handheld weapon, and I think it's what made the scene really, really unique. And also, they look pretty cool in suits. Like people kill each other in suits. Right. It's like, all right, and you don't see it too often. Like I kind of like it.
You're right. No, I mean they definitely have captured that like sort of James Bond, feeling of like the sort of gentleman's action movie.
Yeah.
Like that's an aesthetic that I don't always love, but the John Wick franchise does a pretty good job with it. And like to your point about the creativity, it's not just that it's like, oh, no guns. You see the characters like struggle to like work with the technology, to work with other characters' armor. Like everything is thought out, and that to me is just awesome. I want to get into the actors a little bit too. I think every actor does an amazing job. Now, martial arts acting is different than drama acting in a lot of ways. Donnie Yen is incredible. Keanu Reeves is obviously incredible. We got some pretty damn good newcomers.
Yeah, I completely agree. I am blanking on their names, but I really think everyone kind of stepped up to the plate. I think, Donnie Yen and obviously Keanu were just like incredible, and seeing them interact and fight each other was so cool. But yeah, I really think all the actors kind of like really gave it their all. Even though it was mostly Keanu and Donnie Yen, I think that there still was like that heart there and that essence, especially in like Osaka with the father and daughter.
Yeah, and that actress in particular, Rina Sawayama, I believe is her name. I like after seeing this movie, I looked it up. It's like, was she in other martial arts movies? Like she was amazing. She was going like toe to toe with Donnie Yen, and it looked believable. She's a singer and a model by trade. So that, add that to the list of movies we've seen in recent years that had a great performance by someone who does not come from an acting background. So that was, I was really impressed with just how good she looked at martial arts acting. You would have thought she was doing it her whole life. There's one other thing we got to mention, and this is the big spoiler that comes in. John Wick dies at the end of this movie, so we're led to believe.
Right.
It could be, or maybe he's not dead. I personally kind of hope he is. I think Keanu is ready to move on from this franchise, and I think we have enough that will move us forward. We have a show coming out. I think we have two spin-off properties coming out, which is great. But that's the big spoiler. And there's a duel at the end. So what are your thoughts on John's death and also this duel?
Right. Yeah. Personally, I think John's death is kind of fitting. It's sad, and I was honestly like shocked when like he died. I'm like, wait, what? Like, but I think it was fitting. He got his freedom. He gets to be with his wife again. Like, and it just felt like everything he worked towards kind of was just hit that point. And it's like, we hit the final moment, and it's like, I think in terms of, if he was to live and would it be a fifth one, how do you beat this? How do you beat Chapter 4? It was so good in terms of just action and even the story. Again, it was like, it feels complete, so it almost feels like the fifth one would be a little bit of a stretch. I think in terms of the duel, I love the duel. I thought it was kind of cool how like traditional and just how like not over the top it was. I think it kind of added a little bit more stakes and kind of let the actual like intensity of them two facing off really stand out.
I completely agree. I think it was a great, simple piece of combat to end a really, really choreographically complex franchise. And Keanu's given us 4 classic action movies. So I think this is definitely an okay place to wrap up.
Yeah.
But we got to give it a rating out of 10. What would you give John Wick Chapter 4 out of 10?
Honestly, I feel like this was the perfect action movie. I got to give it a 10. I don't know how an action movie gets any better than this, and I don't know how they can top it. It was perfect from start to finish, honestly.
As an action fan myself, my enjoyment was probably at that 10 level. But the only reason I'm not going to give it that 10 grade is because if you're not a fan of not just action movies but action scenes, you're just not going to enjoy this movie. So I think I'm going to give it we'll say an 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
But I agree with you. Love everything about this. Will be rewatching.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what we got for our review of John Wick Chapter 4.